Today, I have the question for you, Tam Fam. Would you sleep in a separate bed from your partner? That is the topic of our next, so hold on, because I'm going to lay it out for you. I can tell you, season 1 of our show, we had this topic. It is not a new one, but what I find fascinating is you're seeing more younger couples, not like couples in their 50s who've been there so long, and you're like, finally, I've been with you long enough, get in the other room. Younger couples are doing this as well. Actress turned entrepreneur Tamron Diaz made headlines in 2023 when she opened up about the sleeping arrangements in her marriage to Benji Madden. Appearing on Molly Sims' Lipstick on the Rim podcast, Tamron Diaz, a famous actress, said we should normalize separate rooms for couples. Our next guests, Casey and Andy Taylor, could not agree more. They've been married just 5 years, and they revealed on social media how they purchased queen-size bunk beds for their New York City studio apartment, describing the move as a peak marriage millennial style. But there are plenty who, as you can already hear from our audience, who don't agree with it, including New York divorce attorney Kristen Ferris, who says it can mark the beginning of the end of a marriage. Tam Fam, please welcome Kristen, Casey, and Andy to the show. So, Casey and Andy, as I said, this is not new. I mean, listen, people have been talking about sleeping for, like, husbands or wives, in some cases, snore too loud. Some people like to watch the TV. Sometimes kids invade. So there are a litany of reasons. I am fascinated by the two of you because you are millennials. And you have bunk beds.
Yes, we do.
Actually, I'm Gen Z.
You're Gen Z. Okay, you're Gen Z. You're a little older. So 5 years. Tell me whose idea was this?
I would say it was a collaborative idea. We had separate beds prior to this, so there was only a small portion of our relationship that we had slept in the same bed, but
what brought on that decision? Was it something you discussed early in the marriage or early in dating?
Well, I worked the night shift a lot.
That was what it started off with originally,
and then
I would say.
even when I got off the night shift, we were like, I'm fine with sleeping separately.
See,
because we got used to it for a while.
We have different sleeping styles. I kick him, I take my own blanket. It's just, we prefer to be apart sometimes.
That's what I think is fascinating when I pose the question, but once you start to hear your night shift, right? So you would wake her up if you were coming in, or you getting up would wake her up. Sleeping styles. You sound like my son, a wiggle worm.
Yes,
like all over the place.
Blanket stealer,
Blanket stealer
yeah.
and all of that. So that's how you came to the conclusion. Did it affect, or has it affected your romantic life in any capacity?
I would say it's improved it, to be honest with you, because you kind of really have to think about that and prioritize it a little bit more instead of just like, okay, well, we're in bed, that's something I would expect to happen. Rather, like, do I feel like spending this time with my partner, or do I feel like being by myself right now?
Oh.
And I would say our attraction for each other doesn't come from sleeping in the same bed. It comes from my partner showing up for me every day and the intimacy that's in.
I love that. So, Kristen, you're a divorce attorney. So you see marriage when it's at the end.
I do.
I have had, you have strong views on the topic. I had a couple on, as I said, season 1. They were married, I think, nearly 50 years, and they had not slept in the same bed for almost half of that. So they got to the finish line further than most couples would ever. But they said the secret was they didn't sleep together.
Well, I think the problem is that I have clients that come to me and they're saying, I'm here and I can't do this anymore. And I'll ask, well, what started it? And they'll say that, well, we co-slept, or my husband snored, or my wife had a different shift, kind of like what you guys were talking about. And by the time they come to me, they're starting to tell me that there was other red flags that started to pop up along the way. So while it may have started out genuine, and this is what they thought would be best for their relationship, come a few years later, it wasn't. The lack of intimacy began. The lack of emotional needs got met. All of these things started to trickle down, and it was like one thing after another, and then they show up to my office.
So, that went fast. It went straight to divorce court. Leah and Nick, my heart's pounding. So your thoughts on couples sleeping in separate beds, Nick?
My first thought is, they make bunk beds in queen size? I did not know that.
But they do.
I actually thought that too. I was like, they make queen size bunk beds? All right.
But I think nothing ends a relationship faster than being sleep deprived.
Yeah.
So I feel like we got to get a good night's sleep and achieve that however you want to achieve that.
Right.
Right?
Leah, what do you think?
Well, you guys are obviously incredible communicators, which I think is so. I've been with the same person 18 years. We sleep in the same bed. I will say, though, that I can see sleeping separately because sleeping next to an adult human male, he's about 250 degrees. I mean, you're like, are you the sun? You are so hot. can we turn on the air conditioner?
So your body temperatures, I know they make beds now like, he's hot, I'm cold. It's like, no, you can just go in this other room and be hot. So you're open to the idea? Maybe?
I think if it works for people,
Okay.
I can see you want to be comfortable.
All right, so hold your cards up. We've got 2 yes in favor of sleeping in separate beds. The audience, yes?
That's pretty much how it is.
The audience is split, but a couple of married women in our audience say, 20 years in the bed with me, but then after that, go to your own room. That's where it stands. You can follow Casey and Andy